Join today to take your SAT prep to the next level. Members get access to over 1,000 solution videos answering the questions in College Board's question bank and concept-based practice questions with videos to solidify your SAT skills. Thanks for watching. Grateful. Starting with question number 1 here. Here we have something with a length of 2,300 centimeters. Now, any number is itself over 1, and now we can just use chemistry style unit conversions. If we multiply this by 1 meter over 100 centimeters, well, this entire thing here is equal to the number 1, because when you have equal quantities in your numerator and denominator, that makes a fraction equal to 1. And when you multiply by 1, nothing happens. So the theory behind this is that we're not changing the value, even though we are changing the appearance. Centimeters cancels with centimeters, leaving you with a certain number of meters. And that number is 2,300 on the top, 100 on the bottom. In other words, 2,300 divided by 100, which is 23, and so our answer here is B. Going over to question number 2 now. If f of x is 8x and f of x is 72, then 8x and 72 are equal to each other because they're equal to the same thing. So now we can ask ourselves what's happening to x is being multiplied by 8. So the opposite is to divide by 8, and we'll get x equals 9, which is B. Now going to question number 3, here we have 20% of 440. Now 20% in decimal form, that would be 0.20, because to move from percent to decimal, you move the decimal 2 spaces left. So you have 0.20, and that's of, which, by the way, of means multiply in math. So 0.20 times 440. And now it can go into your calculator, and that comes out to 88, which is answer choice B here. Now question number 4 is asking us about vertical angles. And those would be angles in this type of arrangement, like angles 1 and 2 here. And we need to know that vertical angles are congruent. In other words, they have equal measures to one another. So angle 1 is equal to angle 2. So the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 2. If angle 1 measures 72 degrees, then so will angle 2. And that's answer choice A here. To start question number 5, we don't really need these parentheses for anything because there's no number out here or minus sign that needs to be distributed. So let's just get rid of those parentheses to start out. And we'll have P plus 3 plus 8 equals 10. Now you can combine like terms. P plus 11 is 10. And next, what's happening to P? It's being added with 11. So let's do the opposite, which is to subtract 11. And we'll get P is -1, which is answer choice A here. Now going on to number 6, here we're being asked for the y-intercept of this graph. So here's the y-axis, and we're being asked where does this thing hit the y-axis. And by the way, that y-intercept is the place where x is 0, and of course an x-intercept would be the place where y is 0. So in this graph, this is the place on this graph where x equals 0. In fact, it's the point 0, 3. And what's the y-coordinate? It's 3. Now going over to question number 7 here. Here we're being asked what is the solution for this system of equations. And let's talk for a second about the word solution, which is surprisingly complicated. For a single curve, the solutions would be the x-intercepts. So these would be the solutions here. But for multiple curves or functions, the solutions are the places where they hit each other. So you have the same word meaning different things in two primary situations. So coming over here, the solution for multiple functions is where they hit one another. And that right there is the point 2, 4, because x is 2 and y is 4. And that's answer choice B here.
Join today to take your SAT prep to the next level. Members get access to over 1,000 solution videos answering the questions in College Board's Question Bank and concept-based practice questions with videos to solidify your SAT skills. Thanks for watching. Grateful.
Now going over to question number 8. Here we're being asked for one of the two solutions. And the reason there are two solutions is, for instance, if you had the square root of 25, well, that would actually be plus or minus 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, but negative 5 times negative 5 is also positive 25. So when we get two solutions, we're being asked to keep the positive one. So let's add 53 to both sides. And we'll get 144, and that's equal to k squared. So square root of both sides, and the answer is plus or minus 12. And so what's our positive solution? Well, that's the plus 12, which is answer choice D here. Now going over to question number 9, here we're being asked the solution to this system. So one way to think about this is you have two lines, and we're being asked where they hit. But this couldn't be easier because we know x is 8. So we can substitute that in. Wherever we see an x, we can put 8 in its place. And now we can just start solving. We can take away 8 from both sides. And we'll get 3y equals 18. Now, what's happening to y? It's being multiplied by 3. So the opposite is to divide by 3. And we'll get y equals 6. And that's our answer to number 9. Now going to question number 10. Here we're being told that s is the cruising speed. So let's write that here. We're also told that the cruising speed is between 150 and 170. So s, it can be smaller than or equal to 170, or it can be greater than or equal to 50. Or it can be greater than or equal to 150. And this 3-part inequality matches answer choice D here. Now going to question number 11, let's just quickly talk about the definition of a solution, which is surprisingly complicated. For a single curve, a solution is the place where it hits the x-axis. So here the solutions are the x-intercepts. For multiple functions, the solutions would be the places where those functions hit each other, not the x-axis. So the same thing has two different meanings in two primary situations. So here we have the multiple functions, and where are they hitting each other? They're hitting each other when x is 1 and y is 5, which is answer choice C here. Now going to question number 12. Here, we're being given a g of x function, which happens to be an absolute value function, and then we're being asked for g of 4. So for these f of x type statements, if you're being asked for f or g or h or whatever of a number, that means you plug that number in as x. But if, on the other hand, you're being told the whole f of x or the whole g of x or h of x or whatever, if the whole thing is set equal to a number, then that's y. And you simply set the whole function equal to that because your whole function is your y. So here, it's g of 4. In other words, x is 4. So that's nice and easy. G of 4 is absolute value 4 plus 18. Now, a lot of times, these absolute value symbols can just be treated like parentheses. So in other words, we want to get the value inside first and then use the absolute value. So at this stage, if we had a negative number, absolute value would make it positive. But it's positive, so we'll just leave it alone. And we have 22 there. And that's answer choice D for number 12. Now going over to question 13, here we're hearing about an isosceles triangle. Isosceles means two of the sides are equal in length. And each of the two congruent sides has a length of 10. So this is 10, this is 10, this is x. Now, if the whole perimeter is 36, well, that perimeter is 10 plus 10 plus x. And now we can just start solving this equation here. We can go ahead and say 36 is equal to 20 plus x, then take away 20 from both sides, and we'll get x is 16, which is answer choice C here. Now question 14 is just asking us to make sense of an XY graph here. Y is the account balance, and X is the amount of time since the initial deposit. So this account started at $20, and with every month that went by, it increased in value. So what is the amount of the initial deposit? Well, that's the starting amount. And like we said a moment ago, it's equal to 20. And so that is our answer for question 14.
Join today to take your SAT prep to the next level. Members get access to over 1,000 solution videos answering the questions in College Board's Question Bank and concept-based practice questions with videos to solidify your SAT skills. Thanks for watching. Grateful.
Now going over to question 15 here. Here we're being told about the number of customers that are located in one of three theaters. So we know the probability of theater A and the probability of theater B, and we need to know C. Now, all of the possible outcomes for any situation would always add to 1. In other words, if I take all the probabilities of all the possible things that could happen in any one situation, all of those probabilities should add up to 1. So to find the probability of theater C here, the customer being in theater C here, we can start at 1 and take away the two probabilities that we already have. And on the calculator, 1 minus 0.48 minus 0.24 is 0.28. And so we know there's a 0.28 probability of the customers being in theater C. So that means that if we have 350 customers, then we can multiply that by 0.28, and it'll give us the likely amount of customers in theater C. So on my calculator, 350 times 0.28 comes out to 98, and that's answer choice D for number 15. In question number 16, we have sort of a complicated little situation to just get a hold of. So each week, Brian is saving 2/5 of the $215 being earned that week. So 215 times 2 divided by 5 on the calculator comes out to 86. Now he's saving this each week for 9 weeks. So let's just take that number and multiply it by 9, and that gives us 774, and that's our answer for number 16. Now going to question 17, we have an initial equation, and we have a bunch of XY tables. Now, the one thing to notice is we have all the same X values. So one way to make sense of this is to just plug in those X values. So what's Q of 0? Well, that would be 32 times 2 to the 0. And anything to the 0 power always equals 1. So this is 32 times 1, or just 32. So we know that when X is 0, Y has to be 32. And so we've gotten rid of answer choices A and B so far. Next, let's try Q of 1. So that would be 32 times 2 to the 1. In other words, 32 times 2, which is 64. And both of these answers also have the 64. So let's do the minus one. Q of -1, well, that's 32 times 2 to the -1. And what's a negative exponent? Now, negative exponents mean that something is on the wrong side of the fraction. For instance, if I had a over b to the negative x, well, that's the same as saying b over a to the positive x. So to make the negative exponent turn into a positive, you can flip what's being affected by it. Similarly, if we had 5 to the -2, well, any number is a self over 1, but the negative means that that's on the wrong side of the fraction. So the 5 to the -2 moves to the other side, and the exponent becomes positive, leaving what's underneath all of that, which is the invisible number 1. So 5 to the -2 is the same as 1 over 5 squared. So coming over here, we've got 32 times 2 to the minus. So coming over here, we've got 32 times 2 to the -1, which is the same as saying 32 times 1 over 2. And so that's half of 32, which is 16. So when x is -1, y is 16. And so our answer here is D. Now going over to question number 18. Here we're being asked about a right circular cylinder, and we're being asked about the volume of it. Now that's on the formula sheet. The volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. So if we start filling into that, well, we know that the height is 6, so this is 6 right here. But what's the radius? If you have a circle, then you need to know that the diameter is the full distance across that circle. So here the diameter is that distance, and that would be 22. On the other hand, the radius, well, that's half the diameter. That's the distance from the center to the side of the circle. So if the diameter is 22, then the radius is 11. So here we'll plug in 11 for the radius. And so now we have pi times 11 squared. So that's pi times 121 times 6. And that'll give us C, 726 pi. Now going to question 19. Here we can simplify what we're being given until we have it in y equals mx plus b form. And whatever's in the m spot, well, that'll be the slope. So let's start doing that. So let's distribute the 1/3. So y is 29 over 3, x plus 10 over 3, plus 5x. Now we're going to need to combine these two things, which we can do using common denominators. So 5, really 5 over 1, if we multiply that by 3 over 3, it'll become 15 over 3. And don't forget there's an x there. So 5 over 1x, that's the same as 15 over 3x. Now we have common denominators, so we can add this, and that'll give us 44 over 3x plus the 10 over 3 that was already there. And so our slope is whatever's in the m spot again, which is the 44 over 3. If we had been asked for the y-intercept, well, that would have been 10 over 3. But this right here is our answer. Now going over to question 20, here we have a rectangle being inscribed in a circle. So let's imagine that a little. Let's say that this is our circle. And inside of that circle, we have a rectangle. So let's draw that right here. And right now we've got a rectangle inside of our circle. Now the diagonal of that rectangle, so we can draw that too, just a diagonal segment going across. And it looks a little bit like that. that diagonal is twice the length of the shortest side of the rectangle. So if this is x, the diagonal is 2x. Now the trick in this situation would be to maybe call the third side of the triangle y and put that into Pythagorean. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. X squared plus y squared is c squared. And instead of And so x squared plus y squared is 2x squared. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. So we have 4x squared is equal to x squared plus y squared. Now we can take away x squared from both sides. So minus x squared there. And we have y squared equals 3x squared. And now we can take the square root of both sides, and we'll get y equals x times the square root of 3. Because the square root of x squared was indeed x, and the square root of 3 is just square root of 3. So we can replace this y with x root 3. And now we have something that we can use to sort of write out the area of the rectangle, which is base times height. So for the base, we'll put x root 3, and for the height, we'll put x. And so that's the base and the height of the rectangle. And we were told that that rectangle had the area of 1089 root 3. So we've got x times root 3 equals 1089 times root 3. Simplifying a little, this can be called x squared root 3 equals 1089 root 3. Now we can divide both sides by root 3, and we'll get x squared x squared equals 1089. And now on the calculator, we can take the square root of 1089, which is 33. And now on the calculator, you can take the square root of 1089, which is 33. So we did square root, and we got x equals 33. And so now, what is the length of the diameter of the circle? Well, that's 2 of our x's, and x is 33. So the diameter would have to be 66. Now going to question 21, here we have an inequality, and if we're thinking about graphing it, we have to get it into like a y equals mx plus b format. And we can compare the inequality to the line. So I'll show you what that means. So take away 2x from both sides, negative y greater than negative 2x plus 883. Now we can multiply by negative 1, and we'll get y, and we'll get positive 2x, and we'll get negative 883. And for inequalities, if you multiply or divide by a negative, you reverse the inequality. So now we have it in a y equals mx plus b format. So we'll compare it to the y equals mx plus b line that's related to this inequality. So just imagine you have an xy axis, and if this is y is mx plus b, then our b is negative 883, and our slope is 2. So it's going up 2 over 1 in terms of the slope. But it would help an awful lot to know where the x-intercept is. Now, The x-intercept is the place where y is 0, and the y-intercept is the place where x is 0. So if we want the x-intercept here, we'll make y 0, and then we'll solve. Add the 883 to the other side. Divide by 2, and you'll get 441.5. So this right here is 441.5 on the x-axis. In other words, it's 441.5 comma 0. So for greater than and less than, you want to have a dashed line. So that's this line right here. And because it's less than, we're shading below. So let's just imagine that. If we shaded below all of this, generally speaking, it looks like that. And what we're saying is that we cannot have a point that's on this line. If you're on the line, you're not in the solution set, because the solution set is defined as the collection of all points that are below that line. So you can't be on the line, but you can be a hair below it. And let's think about how, if the slope is 2, well, that slope of 2 really means it's 2 over 1. So if we want to know where's the next point that continues beyond this x-intercept, we would go up 2 and over 1. And so this point right here would be 442.5, comma 2, because we went up by 2 and over by 1. And we can kind of keep doing this. We can go one more to the right, so 443.5, and up by 2 more, so 4 for the height there. And let's continue it the opposite way. Right over here, if we go down 2 over 1, you'll have 441.5 and negative 2 for your y value. And down 2 and over 1 again. Down 2 and over 1. And down 2 and over 1 again. And we'll have a height of negative 4 and an x value of 440.5. So it helps to have all of these values so we can really figure out what points fit and don't fit. By the way, the x-intercept, I'm just going to go ahead and label it as 441.5, comma 0, because that's what it is. And let's start figuring out which of these fit. If we look at answer choice A, that has a point at 440, comma 0. So 440 would be around here. It would have a height of 0, and it would be left of 441.5. So we know that that doesn't work. And we have that same point here as well. Now on C, we have 442.0. And that actually works well because that would put us like right around here, to the right of 441.5 at 0. So that's in the solution set. What about 440, negative 2? Well, right here we've got 441.5, negative 2. That's this point that I'm going to highlight in red right now. So if we stayed at the same height but went to the left to 440, it puts us around here, which is out of the solution set. So 440, negative 2 is out, and we've narrowed out points from A, B, and C, and therefore the answer has to be D here. Now going over to question 22, here we're being told that M is the original price of a mirror, and we're being told that V is the original price of a vase. So right now, after writing those out, we can easily say M plus V has to be 60 because the original price combined was 60. So now the question is telling us that if for that M, for the mirror, if we discount it 25%, well, what number are we going to have here? Now, here's how you can think of increasing or decreasing something by a percent. You start at 100, because percents are different than other numbers. They start at 100, and then you can add or subtract from there, giving you, in my example, 125 or 75. Now, both of those in decimal form are 1.25 or 0.75. So in other words, if I want to raise something 25%, I'm going to multiply it by 1.25. And if I'm going to lower something by 25%, I'm going to multiply it by 0.75. So coming back here, the mirror is being discounted 25%. So that's 0.75. And the vase is being and the vase is being discounted by 45%. So let's just draw a diagram for that. If you start at 100% and you go up or down by 45 from there, it's going to take you up to 145% or down to 55%. And in decimal form, this would be 1.45 and this would be 0.55. Because to go from percent to decimal form, you move the decimal 2 spaces left. Because to go from percent to decimal form, you move the decimal 2 spaces left. So if we're discounting it 45%, that means we're multiplying it by 0.55. And the discounted price, the combined sale price for these is 39. So we have 0.75M plus 0.55V equals 39. That matches this one right here. And M plus V is 60, which also matches. So the answer for 22 is C.
Join today to take your SAT prep to the next level. Members get access to over 1,000 solution videos answering the questions in College Board's Question Bank and concept-based practice questions with videos to solidify your SAT skills. Thanks for watching. Grateful.